Excuse me while I brush my tongue. This is a ritual that finally broke Liz and I up, I think, because I would spray the mirror with this baking soda. And she claimed it was the scrapings from my tongue. I said, no, it's baking soda, but I would never wipe it off properly. And we had enormous fights about that. I think that was the ultimate.
Anyway, Jill died of distemper, and I was very young, and I remember I had a heart on my shirt then. Shortly when the day the dog died, it was like a fencing shirt, a little white shirt with a red heart. And I remember seeing, after the dog died, the heart leave the shirt, and the heart started floating up against a very clear blue sky. There was no pollution in Barrington, Rhode Island then. Up, up, up. It was my heart, the dog's heart, a heart. And shortly after that, I stopped talking, my mother said, for weeks, maybe even a month. And they were thinking of taking me to a psychiatrist. I don't know where they were going to find a psychiatrist in Barrington, Rhode Island in 1946. Maybe they were thinking of Providence. I can remember that when I was feeling anxious and my parents were away, I would go in my underwear into my mother's closet and stand there in her big walk-in closet and look at her dresses and her shoes and smell the inside of that closet and look at myself in her full-length mirror, and I liked that very much. And then I would go in to their beds that were pressed next to each other, and I'd crawl between the beds in my underwear and just hang there like this, suspended. Until I didn't feel anxious anymore. And I don't know if anyone is even to pay attention to me talking to myself. That's one thing I notice people do a lot around Harvard Square, is talk to themselves. And not in that raving way that they do in New York City.
Who does that?
The people that talk to themselves in Harvard Square.
Oh.
They don't talk in that raving way that they do in New York City.
Well, have a nice day.
They talk in a very considerate way. In Vermont, in Hardwick, Vermont, I was in a bar, and I told a man in the bar I was just traveling through, and he said, "Oh, having an adventure, hey? Well, you can tell you're having an adventure when you wished you were home in bed." And that's the truth. And I always find that the best stories come out of the worst drags. And right in the middle of it, I'll say, ooh, this feels, ugh, but it's going to make a good story one day when I get some distance on it. So just keep careful notes. I think one of the things that impresses me about Cambridge is the old people. They live to be an old age. All these old women with New Balance shoes on. And I don't like the poster. Here I am. When I first saw it, I said, I don't remember wearing a shirt like that. And Renee said, what do you mean? That's not even your body. And then I fell in love with Jeannie Lamb. And Jeannie was perfect. She was an angel. Olive skin, full lips, long brown hair to her shoulders, small breasts. She was 13. And Jeannie and I would have kissing contests. We would all have kissing contests out back. And we would time each other while everyone stood around and smoked Luckies and Chesterfield regulars. And Jeannie and I would win. We did 20 minutes like this. No lip movement. You know, we couldn't breathe, just pressed. And then after the kissing contest, we'd go pet in Jeannie's playroom, and I can remember the 45 records would be dropping down, shaboom, shaboom, life is just a dream, sweetheart. And then it got more ornate when we would pet. We got into a group. There were 6 of us, I think. There were 3 couples, and we would go to the field behind Jeannie's house. I loved making out in the field in the sun in September. And Jeannie and I would go to one part of the field. Chip Raymond and Mary Banks would go to another. We would divide up. And I would get my hand up on Jeannie's thighs, and what thighs she had, what perfect, beautiful olive thighs. And I would put my hand up just in the inside of that Bermuda short. She was wearing those Madras Bermuda shorts then. It was so popular in the 50s. And I would never put my hand any further than her thigh. You know, the rest was a jungle in my mind. A jungle. I was terrified of it. Are there any secrets that I have? Are there stories that I don't tell? Yes. I have a private life. I mean, I filter my stories. I make a choice what I'm going to tell. I did a piece where I tried to free associate called God is Dead, My Radio. or I'd turn off the radio on a word and just talk about whatever was on my mind. And I knew I was censoring it in front of the audience. They didn't know I was censoring it. They thought I was telling what was on my mind. And I definitely make choices as to what I'm going to reveal and not reveal.
And it's Saturday night, and I always like to play Saturday night. Good. They're out. Everyone's out for a good time here in Cambridge. Even though it is slushy. Ready? Okay, that's it.
My brother Rocky was also a juvenile delinquent. He was thrown out of Barrington High School, which is illegal. You can't throw someone out if your parents are a taxpayer. But they threw him out. He had an overactive imagination. He was very guilty about something. He had a paper route, and he would go out on the paper route, and he would see one of those dump trucks dumping sand back in the back lots, you know. Real sand, real truck, but he would hallucinate a child being buried under the sand. He would come home and say, "Mom, call the police. A child is dying. A child is dying." She'd say, "Dear, it's all in your imagination. Sit down. I'll read to you from the Science and Health. I'll ground you." And she would try to ground his imagination by reading to him from the Bible and the Science and Health. I would see him standing on his bed, holding his throat like this, blue in the face, saying, "I can't breathe, I'm dying, I'm dying." And my parents would be there, my father and mother standing at the base of the bed, reaching up. My mother would be saying, "No, dear, it's all in your head, it's all in your imagination. Calm down, let go, sit down, breathe, it's all in your mind." And finally, she'd calm him down, and my father would go back to bed, and my mother would turn out the lights, and she would sit on the end of my brother's bed, and we'd lie there in the dark room. And all you could see now for illumination were these decals we had, fluorescent decals on the ceiling of the moon, a new moon, Saturn with its rings, Mars, the Big Dipper. And Rocky would start in, and he would say, "Mom, when I die, is it forever and ever?" She'd say, "Yes, dear." He'd go, "Mom, when I die, is it forever and ever and ever and ever?" "Mm-hmm, dear." "Mom, when I die, is it forever and ever and ever and ever and ever?" "Yes, dear." "Mom, when I die, and I just go right out to this, sound asleep. My mother couldn't bear moving here because she couldn't bear leaving the water. She grew up in Barrington on the bay. And part of the upset, my father couldn't understand this. My mother was having a nervous breakdown, and she kept talking about how she couldn't leave the water. She used to walk along the bay all the time on the seawall. And there's no water here. Now, if you could imagine not living by the water driving someone nuts, it's possible. My father moved away from the house in which my mother committed suicide. He remarried and moved into a kind of mutual pleasure palace.
In reading your book, I think I enjoy it very much, but there are some little stories in there that some people would object to. But as far as all the other family things, why, they're all his childhood, that's all, and no reason why he shouldn't talk about them.
No, it's just so basically everyone's, isn't it? Yeah.
I now realize that that's just a part of living. I mean, you don't worry about things in the past that came to pass that you had nothing to do with. It couldn't be helped.
My mother and I were very close, actually. We dated right up through college.